Hello everybody, Julian Perlingero here. We're going to do another great haircut for you today. I want to thank Pivot Point. This is going to be for their series, Professionals Who Practice. And I know you guys, we all know the importance of practicing, especially, those who tune in and watch us cut hair all the time here. I have Randy Taylor, I forgot to say, on the camera. Randy's going to be fielding the questions. So, keep them coming, guys. I love the questions. It keeps the energy going. Love to hear from you. And then also remember to hit your share button. So, we said we're going to be doing a short graduation with disconnection through the top, all right, which is a staple in the salon. And, it's something that I also think, we can do in a lot of different variations. Now, I'm going to start out, I'm going to do the underneath first, which is definitely a more practical way to go about it. So that you can start, get the graduation in, see how that hair sits, and then cut the top length accordingly. And we'll talk about throughout, the lesson today, different options that you have. Well, what if? I love the question, what if, guys? Well, what if you did this? What if you did that? Because I think for my education, just having that mindset and that curiosity is something that really helped me want to explore, right? I never looked at, I learn a haircut, do it once, and that's it. I learn a haircut, I do it 1,000 times, and I try to do it different so many times so I can really understand all the different options. Try it with different textures, try it at different lengths, and so forth. Now, having said that, the sectioning pattern and the approach that I'm going to use would be similar in a lot of different lengths, a lot of different textures. So I'm using the head shape to help guide me through where I take the segments of the haircut. So you can see I'm looking at the transition point of the head shape. So I go above the occipital, and then just as it starts to transfer into the crown, right at that rocking point. So at the occipital, I have my widest point. Then I go above that. I have the other area where it starts to curve into the crown area. So that's where I'm taking my section, following the curvature of the head, which takes me just to behind the ear. Now, once I'm happy with where that major section is, I'm going to start to work my subsections. Now, with that, I'm taking a slightly diagonal section, working with the roundness of the head. And the first thing I want to look at the length that I have through the top of my graduation, and where is that going to fall in relationship to the occipital. So if I was to go a little bit longer and angle my fingers in, well, I'm going to get a much lower graduation. If I go a bit higher and flatter with the fingers, well, then the graduation is going to sit higher above the occipital. That's what I'm going to be working with today. So a little bit of a higher graduation, and then following cleanly into the hairline. You can see I'm breaking down that section because it's quite a large section in the sense of, going from all the way up here down to the hairline. So I have to do it in segments. So working in 3 segments. And then also not really worrying about the length. Right now I just want it to blend into the outline. It may look a little bit too long, but I'll come back and I'll adjust that accordingly. Now once I'm happy with that length, I'm going to start to work towards the ear and then combing the hair back towards the previous. Now, just like the vertical angle, which I'm referring to as graduation, I need to think about the horizontal angle, which is controlled by how much or how little I pull back over direct. Right? So the more I pull back, well, what's going to happen? I'm going to get more length, and it's going to drop down through to the front. The more I come around, the shorter it's going to get through the sides, right? So I'll get a little bit more of a curvature to the shape. One key, that we always need to think about is we need to think about, the shape before we just start cutting, right? So I know what I want to do. I have it pre-planned prior to taking that first section and cutting my guideline in.
Excuse me, Julian.
Yeah.
We have a comment from Frankie.
Yeah.
He's saying he prefers watching you work on live models.
Yeah.
So you can see different textures, hairlines,
Yeah.
etc. why do you feel like mannequins are beneficial?
Well, I mean, I think for education purposes, they definitely serve a purpose. And I can keep the technique really pure. I do agree with Frankie about using and working on live models so that you can see and adapt it. I mean, obviously I cut hair, I cut clients when I'm at shows, when I'm at seminars, when I'm at classes. You know, I give the option of either doing live models or to do mannequin heads. You know, so I think both are beneficial. It's just, you know, with the forum.
Then we had a question from Mario.
Yep.
Ola, why diagonal sections?
Well, they follow the head shape really good, Mario. And I'm working slightly rounded. So the diagonal section works directly with the shape vertically and horizontally that I'm creating. Now, if I was going to do a more pure straight up and down vertical, that would be good if I was doing a square. Now, if I was going to work horizontally, I could, but I would probably build more weight, right? So that would be more conducive to if I wanted a heavier graduation. So think that you want the angle of your section to relate to the angle that you're cutting, right? But then at the same time, it also needs to relate to the opposite angle of what you're doing. But good question, you know, and that's the thing, you know, always kind of thinking like, well, why, what if, you know, could I do this a different way? Of course, you know, you could do it a lot of different ways, but now you do need to realize everything that you change, every way, you know, that you adapt, it will create a slight difference.
So Yahira Gomez is saying she can't wait to see you at ISI, and people are liking that comment. So I guess you're going to see a lot of people
cool.
at ISI.
Yeah.
And then also a question from Megan. Is this a traveling guide, not a stationary?
Yes, Megan. Yeah. So generally, you know, when we're working and following the curvature of the head, when we're working around the head shape, we're referring to that more of a traveling guide. Whereas if I'm stationary, you know, I may use that to build a more excessive amount of length or weight within an area, but this is definitely traveling.
D. Brown is asking, could you do this on wet, curly, kinky textures as well?
Yeah.
How would that change?
Yeah, well, D, what you want to think about is, you know, whenever you stretch out curly hair, what happens when you release it? It's going to bounce back, right? So you need to anticipate that bounce. So, you know, if I wanted it to fall at a certain length, I might start a little bit longer and then cut it and see how much it's going to spring back. Once I can adjust that, then it's off to the races. Sometimes I'll just take curly hair and I'm just going to do this. You know, this isn't part of the haircut, guys, so if you're just tuning in, right? So I might take the curly hair and I might just really simply just cut it longer and just see what happens, right? I know I'm going to go shorter than that, but then I can anticipate the curl. Okay. Also the ISI, yeah, guys, I'm looking forward to ISI here in Long Beach. We have a lot going on. You know, we have the Hairbrained teach-in, which is going to be awesome. And then also, you know, with Hairbrained, I'm going to be doing some classes there as well. Okay, so now following this on the opposite side, keeping my sections at that slight diagonal. Again, working in to the hairline, following the guide, breaking it down all the way to the bottom of the section.
Now I notice your hands are in a different position.
Exactly. And that was what I'm getting at. I was going to get at, but thanks for bringing me into that segue, Randy. So with the sections being slightly diagonal.
Can you show us maybe from your view? So put the mannequin toward the wall. And I'll go over your shoulder.
Yeah. So because my fingers are at a slight angle, I flip over. When I'm doing the first side, my fingers are parallel to the section that I'm cutting. And then when I do the second side, I flip over first so that they're parallel to the sectioning, but then also so that I'm combing from the ear towards the back. All right. Now you can imagine trying to keep the same section, and I've seen this. And if you've done this, guys, you know, it's just an adjustment that you probably want to make. You know, to try to get my fingers the same angle. Now look what I would have to do to keep my fingertips up. You know, it's really awkward, and I'm leaning over too much to cut the hair. Yeah, so, you know, not saying you can't do it, but it just seems to make it a little bit harder. So by keeping my hands, fingers up, fingers down, I get the most efficient hand position.
Okay. Thank you. Oops, sorry.
Yeah, no worries. All right, so following this through, and I'm going to try to, and I use the word try. I'll do the best that I can to mimic the over direction. And again, that's something that we do based on just having an understanding of the shape that I'm trying to achieve. And I know on paper we'll say, 2 goes into 1, 3 goes into 2, 4 goes on the 3, and so on and so on. But, once we go from a piece of paper, a diagram, to the head, well, now we need to look at the head and see where my hand is in position with the head and try to consistently do it from one side to the other. And these are things I think about, every haircut that I do, and I've been cutting hair for quite a long time, and that's really, a key part in the Pivot Point, series, professionals who practice. We never stop focusing on the fundamentals. The fundamentals are really what is going to give us the ability to be creative.
Lynn Webster says, sometimes I get the sides different thickness on graduation. I know it's the way I hold my scissors and arms even, but I can't get out of that habit. For example, the right-hand side may have more weight on the bottom of the graduation.
Yeah, and it's natural for that. Well, I'm sorry, what was the name? Lynn. That's a very natural thing. And step 1 in correcting it is awareness. Be aware of it. I do the same thing, but because I'm aware of it, I can correct it as I go. Nothing's ever a given, right? So here's the reason why. So when we're cutting the first side, it's really easy and it's natural to rest our knuckles in. So when we cut, this is a natural form that will take the bottom in shorter, all right? Now, when I do this side, I have to exert just a little bit more energy to make sure that my fingertips come inward, because what I want to do is this, and hold my fingers flat. Now, what I did, I just left weight in that corner and length in that corner. So that's one thing to look at. Then from there, just make sure that your over direction is the same on both sides. A lot of people will go 1, 2, back and forth, right? There's nothing wrong with that, especially, if you're working on your balance. There's absolutely nothing wrong with doing that. But ultimately, we want to be able to do one side than the other. It's quicker, it's more efficient.
You have a lot of thank yous for the great education coming in. And Marina is saying, hello from Italy. Is it going to be a sleek graduated shape due to the traveling guide?
A sleek graduating shape. If sleek, it'll follow the curvature of the head. It'll sit a little bit tighter. So yes, in that sense.
And Frankie Cox, he's saying that it would be really helpful to have a before picture. An ending picture before we start, which I think is a really good.
No, that's great.
Idea.
And now that I posted yesterday, I was just mentioning this to Randy. I posted on my Instagram account a 1-minute video of a variation of this cut.
Okay.
It was the first time, so we're thinking alike, Frankie, because I wanted people to see what I was going to be doing on this live prior to doing it to create excitement.
So you can hop over to your Instagram.
Yeah.
Julian Perl.
Yeah, it's at Julian Perl.
Okay, cool.
So now cross check, right? Make sure this all looks good.
Not bad.
Yeah, not too shabby for whatever day it is. What is it, a Thursday, Randy?
Yeah.
For a rainy Thursday in LA. Check that, make sure that's all good, right? That looks all right. See what we have on the other side. Now, I like to be critical of my work. So I want to double check that. I have a little bit extra right through here, and I think that was what we were talking about earlier. I live within a 1/16 of an inch, so if it's not within a 1/16 of an inch or less, I'm going to go back through just those last 2 or 3 sections. Nah, I know.
Frank said, be happy for the rain.
Oh, yeah. I don't mind so much. We always say out here in California, oh, we need it.
You know what I think's funny is people drive like it's snowing.
Yeah, exactly. It's like winter storm watch in LA. It's raining. All right, so there we go. So that's good. I think I'm good on the balance now. And again, you know, like I said, the outline's not finished, you know, because I can only get so tight with my hand position and my fingers. Then I'll work this with refinement techniques when I get to that point. But what I want to do is now I want to go on to my next panels. So I started out, and you see I took my sectioning at this curvature, the transition from above the occipital into the crown. So now what I'm looking at is the next transition point is here, right? So the crown into the top area. Now, what's great about, you know, these doll heads is that they do have a very natural curve to them, you know. So we were talking about the difference between, you know, working on live models, you know, working on doll heads. You know, yes, I think there's a place for both, but, you know, even though with it being a doll head, there's a lot of similarities that I would use these same points. Now, on a person, the points might be a little bit more asymmetric on certain head shapes, different from one person to the other, but we really get a sense of working with a natural head because of the shape and the curvature of this. Also, you'll notice generally there'd be a swirl, which there is. So working with the swirl right from that curve and then following it through all the way to the front.
I'm not sure if this is a compliment or not, but Mandy says you're purple.
I'm purple.
I wonder what her favorite color is.
I hope it's purple. You know, I mean, I don't mind being purple. I don't think I've ever been called purple before, but that's cool. I wonder if that's like one of these new young people sayings.
Like extra?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not young.
Maybe you're extra purple.
I'm extra purple. All right, so I'll section this off on the top. I'm going to get this top clean and out of the way. Another thing I want you... What's that?
She was trying to get your Instagram account. Pearl.
Oh, yeah. P-E-R-L. Julian, Julian, P-E-R-L. All right, so get the top out of the way. And, you know, one of the things, guys, that also I want you to take note to, you know, sectioning off is super important. Being really clean about what you do, super important. Again, another form of practicing. Always practicing getting a nice clean section, not only for my control, if I'm working in the salon, clients are walking by, people are walking by, they're seeing what you're doing. I have all the hair like laying in the face, wet all over, it looks like a mess. It's a reflection of my work. I'm working on stage, I'm doing a video. Every reason you can think about keeping your work neat just makes everything look, it shows that you care about what you're doing, which is extremely important. But on a practical sense, it keeps me organized. Right? So many reasons why we always want to keep everything as clean as possible. All right, so now I'm going right from that natural swirl, working down into the guideline. Now I'm going to start to elevate slightly. Right? That's going to help lighten, just round out this crown area, round out the graduation a little bit, and notice blending right into the length from underneath. So now you can see, when it falls, I don't have a weight line. If I was to continue that shape out, what would happen is it's going to fall into more of a ledge. It's going to fall into a heavier shape. Not necessarily wrong if that's what you're trying to achieve, but by lifting, this is what we have to remember. You know, could I do it this way? Yes. What would be the difference? It's only wrong if it's what you're not trying to do. So if you wanted more weight, you wouldn't lift up that little bit. So now I'm going to pivot around. Follow my guideline. As I get above the curve, start to elevate up. Again, come down, check. And now I've come to the side area. So Starting in the center, pivot, 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 3 or 4 sections. Once I reach this point, I'm going to follow through parallel. So I don't need to pivot anymore. There we go. Again, you see the elevation lift just as I reach above the curvature of the head. And now I'll keep those sections back to slightly diagonal, vertical diagonal. So we start to think about, your sectioning patterns. Your vertical sections are more conducive to having the ability to remove weight. Doesn't mean you can't build weight with vertical, but you're more conducive to when you want to build or remove weight. Your horizontal sectioning is more conducive to when you want to build weight. Doesn't mean that you can't remove weight with a horizontal section, but it's just if you're generalizing. Now, your diagonal sections, the weight's going to follow the section. But the more vertical you are, the more characteristics of a vertical section. The more horizontal your diagonal is, the more characteristics of a horizontal section. So when I was referring to that on the great earlier question that we had, why take your sections at this angle? Because it relates to the angles that I'm cutting. What was your question, Randy?
Marina is asking, do you always pivot in the crown area?
When I'm cutting more curvature to it, I love this one, and I'm not being smarty pants here, but I don't always do anything. All right, but there's a reason why, because I'm working on a more curvature, a more curved shape. If I was working on a more square shape, I wouldn't pivot. I would keep them more vertically and take the section in vertical slices instead. So again, knowing the difference will help you make choices with what you're doing. I've been saying this for years and years and years and years and years. It's not about learning a haircut, it's about learning how to cut hair, right? And that's all the fun, things that we adapt. And being able to look at the texture and, adapt to it. Being able to, look at the length and the face shape and the head shape and all the things that we need to do on an everyday basis and being able to adapt to it. The doll head, back to being able to do it on the mannequin, I do it in its most purest form because I'm in a controlled environment, right? And when I go into the salon, I'm dealing with different textures, so I take that pure form and I learn how to adapt it slightly to accommodate different face shapes and different hair textures. All right, so this is the last section. You can see also combing into the previous. And, same thing. The more I pull back here, the more length, I'm going to keep through to the front. So if I was to take that and pull it all the way back, I could get a really nice graduated bob look. This is a nice approach to doing something like that. But I want to keep it a little bit shorter, a little bit softer.
Frankie was asking, do you use a cutting lotion and what pivot point dolly are you using?
Oh yeah, this is Nadine. Okay. All right, this is the Nadine mannequin. Great amount of hair, good density to it. Also has a nice, natural, movement to it, which is really good. As far as the cutting lotion, so I put in the Day, which is from Davinis, right? So this is the hair mist.
Gino's here.
Oh, Gino, you made it.
He's saying, he said, this is the first time that I've noticed on the left side that you cut from bottom up normally.
Yeah, so on this side, I'm going to be cutting from bottom up. And again, it comes down to the hand position. I need to lower, first of all, so that my elbow doesn't go up too high. So I want to be able to keep my elbow level with my shoulder. What I find is once the doll head gets too high and you have to put your elbow, well, now I'm in an awkward position. Doesn't feel good on my hip, and it's hard to stay balanced with the haircut when your body's not balanced. So get the mannequin or your chair set at the right level so that I can keep elbow parallel to shoulder and I just drop my wrist, and then I'll work upwards on this angle. So this was a haircut that I also am doing by request, because we were doing some longer shapes 2 weeks ago, and Gino was, referring to, this shorter look. So this is for you, Gino. All right, make sure I see my guideline. And then I'm going to follow, and there's the top of the guideline from the first side. So to make sure that blends in really nicely. Some people will have difficulty with cutting upwards. A lot of the times because the client isn't in the right position. You have to make sure that the client's in the right position, the height of the client, the head's just slightly tilted away from me. Now, if I was really long, I wouldn't be working palm to palm. I'd be working over my knuckles. So I would be working fingers up, fingers down. So we think about that switch, whether I'm on longer hair or whether I'm on shorter hair.
Gino said thank you.
You're welcome, man. So are some of you guys going to be at the ISSY show? I'd like to hear from you. I'd love to see you there. Come by and say hi. We have a lot going on while we're there.
Andy's commenting on your hair, Andy King.
Andy, I know, man. It's driving me crazy. Andy's used to me saying, a lot of you are actually in the flyer too. You'd see me, I have a shaved head, which I've been doing for a long time.
It's colder.
Yeah, it's cold here, Andy. I had to grow some hair, man. I don't know how much longer I'm going to be able to stand it, but...
Nanette says hi.
Hello there, Nanette.
Hi, Nanette.
Nice to have our regular and new people viewing. For those of you, that are new, with Hairbrained, and, with Pivot Point, we do a lot of education on Hairbrained, Facebook Live. So always stay tuned in, to what's going on. I love that you would watch me do the haircuts and, do what I do. But aside from me, there's, a lot of great artists in the Hairbrained community that just, love sharing. And that's really what it's all about.
Marina is asking, when you start a graduated shape from the back, is it always because you're going to leave more length in the front?
Generally, yes. Yeah, generally, that would be one of the reasons, because what it gives me the ability to do is to pull back very naturally. Yeah. And the more I pull back, the longer the front. If I wanted my graduation to work lower in the back, I would start in the front, over direct forward. And that would make the weight drop down. So think, do I want the hair to move in the direction towards the face? Start in the back. We always start at the shortest point. Right? Said that word always. Then if I want the hair to move away from the face, I start in the front, pull forward, the hair will drop back.
Cool.
Right.
Dana made a comment, says that your class was the most informative class that she ever took.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay. So following this through.
Nanette's killing me. She's talking about peanut butter and jelly. We must have, she said she's eating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. We must have talked about that.
I'm sure peanut butter and jelly has come up at some
point. Stay on top of
at some point of our Facebook lives. And it's actually one of my favorite foods.
An 8 minute shorter than the other side.
Is it? Damn. I hope not.
I'm just trying to throw insecurity.
Oh, okay. Well, that's because I'm thinking about peanut butter and jelly sandwiches now. Nanette, see what you did? All right, so following this through, again, making sure that I elevate slightly higher as I get above the round. Right. And
He's asking, do you switch scissors for different textures?
Yes, yeah. I mean, I have a few different pairs, you know, and it depends on what, you know, what I'm doing. As far as, you know, texture of hair, I don't know if I think of it that way as much. I'm not saying it's wrong. I think of length and technique, right? So I have a pair of 6 3/4 inch BMAC, which I love to use on blunt lines because I can really control the hair and cut through it without disturbing the natural fall. And I can open and close the scissors less. Whereas if I was trying to cut a bob with a pair of 4.5 inch scissors, not saying you can't do it, it's just a little bit trickier. I also like the longer scissors for scissor over comb because what it does is it takes my hands further away from the head so I can get in easier. Now, the smaller scissors, more for internal shapes, for curved, rounded shapes. Because you think when you're cutting a round shape, you have to be on a constant curvature, right? It's also how I control the scissor. When I'm cutting a square or a blunt line, I open and close the scissors much more dramatically, right? When I'm cutting a curved line, I open and close the scissors less. So, you know, you have to think about not just the length of the scissor, but how you're controlling it by opening and closing it appropriately. But awesome question. I think with like a pair of 5.5 or 6, you can pretty much, that's your, you know, your go-to. If you need one pair of scissors, you know, 5.5 or 6 are going to do it. What I'm cutting with now are 5.5, and these are by BMAC, right? So these are my edition Gold Pig. Maybe a little Venice, California logo in there, but these are 5.5 inch.
Oh, this is great.
You can see just, I mean, how I'm cutting, right? So I'm cutting with the tip, lifting up, cutting with the tip of the scissor. So you think about if you're cutting circles and you're opening and closing, you're making corners, right? Yep.
We have Wanda here. She's in school.
Yep.
She's starting haircutting.
Awesome. Love it.
Soon. And she's asking for any tips that you might have that could help her learn faster.
Yeah, slow down.
Okay.
Yeah, and I say that, you know, faster, I don't know what faster is.
I think learn faster.
Yeah, but, you know, slow down, focus on what you're doing, practice it as much as you possibly can, and then, you know, don't get in your own way. You know, just allow the process to happen. Follow good people. You know, like I was saying on Hairbrained, there's great people, great education, and they explain themselves very well. There's no question that doesn't have an answer.
That looks good.
You know, so when you ask a question, there should be an answer that makes sense. I know this isn't the greatest angle here.
Kink in my neck.
Let me spin around. But, you know, I can remember the learning curve, and I work with a lot of students, and, you know, over the years have taught in many cosmetology environments. And I can remember, you know, going through my own apprenticeship.
Joyce is asking, can you recommend a good pair of scissors for dry cutting?
Yeah, I mean, my favorite are BMAC. And if you go on their website, you know, they have scissors that are specially made for, you know, for dry cutting. And, you know, it's definitely my favorite brand of scissor. Can't say I cut with anything else.
So I noticed then you came through and you came back to that corner with forward over direction. That just helped it lay better?
Yeah, what I'm doing is I'm just sitting it off the face a little bit. Still working on keeping length, you know, through the perimeter. But, you know, what that does is now where the weight was dropping fully down, it just sets it back off the cheekbone a little bit. Gives a little bit of lift in this area. Now, it's also going to work well with what I'm going to do at the top because the top is going to come over, right?
Frankie asked this question earlier and I missed it.
Yeah.
He was just asking if you had any predictions for the way hair trends are going to go in 2019, and any suggestions on getting people away from the long wavy hair. You seem to be a master at like kind of having a diverse clientele.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
You could really speak to this.
That's a good one, Frankie.
Especially here in California.
Yeah, I
long
mean,
wavy hair is.
I always think like, you know, when it comes to clients, we're always going to have a diverse clientele, right? And you're always going to have your clients that want something that is, you know, really polished and leaning more towards the styling than it is the haircut. You're going to always have a clientele, you know, that leans more towards, you know, natural, carefree hair that is easily maintained and easily styled. Yeah, go ahead.
Can you explain this section?
Yeah. Let me just finish my thought. What I would say is stay true to how you do hair and you'll build a good clientele. When you try to market yourself and to do things that maybe aren't your forte or that you don't believe in, you're not going to be happy and it's going to show in your work.
So find the 200 clients that kind of
find the clientele. I cut hair a certain way. I style hair a certain way. Clients that come to me like the way I do it.
All right, so
the sectioning.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a cool sectioning. This is one of the ones that I learned when I worked at Scissor, and this is one of the contemporary classics that, if you look up, is referred to as the bias cut. And the idea is the way that the sectionings are taken, you know, across the head shape, right? And we work on a diagonal section. I'm still using...
So back right corner to front left corner?
Yeah, from right through to front. I mean, you can do the opposite, because I'm going to crisscross so that you know. But because I'm cutting, I'm going to cut from short to long, cut out into it. Now I'm getting my guideline from the underneath, so it will blend in the crown. So that's the guideline from my second panel in the back. But now I'm angling my fingers up and holding them parallel to that section. So now the longest length that I have is at the corner of the section, right? So it's going from short to long, right? Now what I'm going to do from that point, I'm going to continue my sections all the way through and then over direct back towards that, right? So everything will come right to that point. Now the more you pull back, the longer the front's going to be. You could work it where you pulled less if you wanted less length or more. You know, that's something that you have to determine on how much and understanding what you're trying to achieve.
We have a question from Amy Brown.
Yeah.
She has a client with a super flat spot in the crown.
Yeah.
How do I adjust when I don't want the hair to look flat in that area?
Yeah, well what you want to think about, I like to explain this as positive and negative space. Where there's flatness within the head, you need to leave a corner within the haircut to compensate for it, right? And that's something that, you know, I first started to learn when I learned how to do a square haircut, right? So one of the areas that we place corners when we're cutting a square layer is in the crown area. And the idea is that if you have a flatter area in through the crown, by leaving a corner, now it doesn't need to be sharp like that, it can be rounded through, right? That will help fill in the negative space. So that's what I mean by positive and negative. So now I'm going to work this all the way through to the front. And now, you know, we spoke a little bit about traveling and stationary. So I'm more so stationary now with my guideline. So everything's coming back just to about the same point. And then following that angle, you can see already what's happened is the length's starting to drop down around the face.
Another question from Amy.
Yep.
Also, do you want to adjust your angle for the top depending on where they part? Is there a way to do it to part on either side?
Yeah, I mean, with this, I'm going to work more with a central balance. You know, you could work off to a parting, But I find with this look and with a lot of your, you know, looks that are a little bit more disheveled, say, you know, by cutting it into the center of balance, it'll be fine. She'll be able to part it, or they'll be able to part it, I should say, in any place, you know, which will be good. But if you do have the client, it's
this
like...
one's hard to part in the middle, though, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, well, you could. You could. You know, but like if you had a client that wanted it parted definitely right here all the time, then I would work to that parting, yes. You know, I think also, you know, with the clientele that I deal with, and, you know, it might not be your clientele, they like a lot of options with their hair. And they want to be able to move it around and play with it and have it look different from day to day. You know, and that's something, you know, that I get complimented on a lot, that the clients will say, no matter how I comb my hair, it works. It looks good.
Yeah, Frankie, you don't have to apologize for all the questions.
No, man, it's good. That's why we're here.
Can you show him the disconnection when it's appropriate time?
Yeah, well, actually, through this side, you'll already start to see. Now, it connects in the crown, right? So it connects here, but then the further I go forward, what's happening is it's starting to disconnect, right? So think about this, Frankie, right? So you got two shapes, okay? So you have the shape underneath the parietal bone that's coming in. Then you have the shape on top of the parietal bone that's going out. This falls over top of this shape, right? Now, I'm going to do the same on the second side. So the first side, I took it was from right to left. Now I'm going to go from left to right on a diagonal. Oh, look at that, parted right for me. Now,
does this parting have to go all the way to the front like the other one, or are you changing this a little bit?
Eventually it will.
Okay.
Yeah. So now I've already cut a lot of this hair on the first side.
Okay.
I'm still looking at the guideline from the underneath, right? And again, my fingers are pointed up.
And this is connecting in the back?
And it's connected in the crown. So right there is the connection point.
Okay.
Make sure that that goes all the way forward, didn't miss any hair. Now, you know, you'll also notice when I pull this back, Randy, some of this front hair doesn't reach because I already cut it when I cut this side. You know, so I'm still sectioning it all the way through. Yeah, but you'll notice when you cut the first side, if you have a long top, you know, you'll be cutting further forward. But because I already did this side, when I'm cutting the second side, it stops a little bit sooner. See, there was an answer for that question, Randy. Not just, yeah. All right, so again, keeping the fingers pointed, parallel to the section, pulling back.
Are your sections parallel to each other? This is from Julian.
Yeah. Yes, sections should be parallel to one another. You know, the head shape changes, so, you know, as long as I keep the angle, you know, it might be a little bit different because the head's smaller and wider as I get through the front, but I'm still keeping them diagonal.
I can't remember if her name was Morgan or the student. I mean, one of the things that I really love about watching you cut is you really don't have any obvious bad habits in body position.
I mean,
like this fingertips up, fingertips down when you're barbering and all of that.
Yeah.
And it saves you a lot of frustration with balance.
Yeah, you practice until it becomes natural, right? You know, the more you do it correctly and the more you practice it, the more, you know, once it's ingrained into your way, you don't need to think about it. Just your finger goes there because that's the way that you do it. So it becomes the way. It becomes natural. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cross-check. So I'm going to take my sections, make sure everything's really clean.
Is it true that Wayne Woodruff taught you how to cut hair?
Actually, Wayne.
Somebody's asking if you're Sassoon trained.
Yeah,
Lynn
yeah.
is.
I'm making sure he's doing it right now.
Yeah, Wayne and I, worked together. Wayne Woodruff, that is, for many, many years, along with others like, Gerard Scarpesi, Tracy Sakasitz, Christine Zielinski, and many, many, many others, DJ Muldoon. We all worked together. And the one thing, I know jokingly, did Wayne teach you how to cut hair? We all taught each other how to cut hair. We all pushed each other, man. It was like there was a competition that was friendly, where I wanted my haircut to be the best that day, no matter what. So I would do my demo and I would take it into DJ's classroom and be like, ha ha ha, look at this, right? And he would do the same, So we all, worked together and we all pushed each other.
Sorry, I missed this earlier. Gino asked, and somebody else just followed up with the same question. How is this sectioning and the top of this haircut similar, and what's the difference between this and the wrap? Similarities and differences.
Yeah. The wrap, the wrap's a bit of a heavier shape, right? So when I did the wrap, the underneath was cut. It was still graduated. It was cut from the front. It was cut a little bit different. You started in the back. You worked this. You did the underneath. Then from there, the hair's pulled back more horizontally, right? And then once you establish that inside shape, it was combed down, and then a stronger, more blunt line was put in. But there's similarities definitely in the look, and that's a great thing because, it's another great approach to do a short graduation with a disconnected top.
Amy, we are in Julian's studio. He does not work in a salon. She was asking.
Okay, yeah. I work out of
your salon.
Yeah, my salon, my studio, my house, where we do all the videos.
I mean, your student's salon.
Yeah. I also I travel quite a bit and do education.
So if somebody did want to book you for education, you have a couple of options depending on who they're with, right?
Yeah. The one way to book me would be to go on to my Instagram and look my emails on there. If you direct message me, as Steve from Washington D.C. will say, I may or may not get back to you. But if you email me, my email's on there. That would be easier. You can also go on my website. It's goldpig.me. We're also going to be posting dates, if not already posted, on Davinus Pro, where you'll be able to go in and see the different cities that I'm going to be in, and book that way as well. But if you want a private seminar for your staff, your salon, the best way to do it would be to contact me direct.
Oh, Amy, what kind of a question is that? Are you ever in Texas?
I'm always in Texas, Amy.
Can you tell?
Yeah. No, I love going to Texas. I go anywhere. I have scissors. We'll travel. All right. So now, all right, basic shape, cross check, all good. Refinement. So I'm going to start with the underneath. So when I get the height right, I was saying, I didn't finish when I was cutting the basic shape. A lot of times you can't get your hand in tight enough. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to take this excess length away. I just combed it so I could see where the hairline is. So I'm going to start to work with the tips of the scissor. And then start to use the tips of the scissor and point the line in. By pointing it in, it's just going to give it a little bit more softness, a little bit more of a natural edge. To whereas if I club cut it, which would be blunt cutting, it's definitely going to look a little bit more aggressive. Once I work the pointing, I'm going to lift up and just check to make sure I don't have any corner from changing the outline. Just scissor over comb that edge just a little bit. I'll work the same through the other side. So again, identify where the corner is. work with the tips of the scissor. You know, the more angled they are, the more you're going to take hair off quickly. The more parallel to the hair. Like as I get closer, you know, so now at the angle, I'm at about a 45, I'm cutting length away. Then once I cut the length away, I'll go in a little bit more parallel, which will soften it. Just want to check through the side. I have a little bit too much of a corner right there. And then again, lift up, scissor over comb. Now I want to also carry that through to the sides. Just going to comb that hair, get out of the way. Now I'm going to keep this a little bit longer. So I'm going to point more parallel into the hair. The shape's pretty much there. I'm not, you know, the length's okay. But just through the outline, I'm just going to soften the edge a little bit. So you can see the scissor stays a little bit more parallel to the hair. Comb that down. The front is good. Work that same way through the other side. Again, lift the hair out in the comb and just point in parallel. Okay. Now the top I'm going to reserve and do that after I dry it. I've already put in Day Hair Mist, so I don't need to put any pre-blow drying spray in yet, or any finishing product. So, working with Best Brush, the 7-row. I generally use a 7 or a 9. Now with this, I'm going to wrap the hair primarily. So when I say wrap the hair, the brush motion follows the curvature of the head. So just wrapping the hair around. Rely more so on the airflow than anything. And I'll go back and forth to the front. Get that underneath dry. Now, as I get into the longer hair, I'll start to leaf through and just working the moisture out from roots to end, keeping the airflow down. And what that'll do is it'll remove the moisture and smooth the cuticle. Do that same on the other side. So stand on the opposite side, work with the opposite hand.
Chino said to do this today.
Nice. That's the way to do it, Chino.
We had a question about your blow dryer and your brush.
Yeah.
I know that you did just review the Dyson also. So they had a question about like what dryer you like.
Yep.
And then also what brush you were using.
Yeah. Well, the brush I was using is a Vest brush, ceramic brush. You know, you can get this color is exclusive to Sassoon, but you can get these on Hairbrained, right? They have a beautiful one. It's 9-row. They have a couple different colors choices.
And your dryer is from the 70s.
Yeah, the dryer is a relic, which I love to use. It's just, I think it's iconic.
Goes with the gray hair.
Yeah, people see this dryer and they, you know, like, oh, Julian's doing this haircut. But no, I just did something. I'm going to post it on my Instagram. I did a commercial for Dyson. And, you know, it wasn't something that I had a lot of experience with prior to, but they gave me the dryer. I had a period of time to use it. And it's great. You know, the weight, the balance, the blow drying aspects of it. You know,
that was the pro version too.
Yeah, there was the pro version, yeah.
The consumer.
Yeah, which is a bit different. Okay, so now you can see I haven't done anything here yet, right? So now what I'm going to do is, again, a lot of option, guys. What I want to do is I want to look at the front length.
So if this was somebody who liked the long wavy stuff, you could just leave it alone.
Oh, God, yeah.
And,
Yeah. I want to bring a little bit more angle into it.
What scissor are you using? Scusa sono Italiano.
Italiano, my friend, paisan. This is a scissor. This is made by BMAC. Let's see, get that nice and clean so you can see the logo.
Other side name? Oh, BMAC.
Yeah, that's BMAC. And this is my edition, which is Gold Pig. Yeah. So yeah, you can get these BMAC, or you can go onto my website, goldpig.me. But BMAC is the brand, and they have many
beautiful hair.
Yeah, many options. You know, and with this, it's like I've done all the internal work, so it gives me a lot of options when it comes to, you know, the finishing touches. You know, like Randy was mentioning, if I liked that length, I could have just simply you know, cut into it and made it a little bit more erratic or soft, kept the wave to it. You know, I chose to point into it a little bit more.
I remember when I first started cutting hair in the 90s, I guess it was 1990.
Uh-huh.
I guess that's part of the 90s.
I guess so. We'll give you that.
Sometimes you would do blunt on one side, and then when you comb it over the other side, it would be soft. Right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You know, like I said, I mean, there's so many options to it. So what I want to do is get rid of the extended length. And then I'm going to have a little bit more fun with it after I'm done that. So now I'm going to comb the hair from one side to the other. Now I'm looking at the grain of the haircut and the movement of the haircut. So the shortness from the layering. And I'm going to start to slice into it.
And you colored there too, right? Those are beautiful highlights.
Oh yeah, I did these earlier today. And I'm going to start to work into the length. And you can see, I get a close up of this. Okay. And it just now, it starts to really loosen up and lighten the edge. But it all comes down to having a good basic shape, guys. And having, you know, a nice symmetry.
Can you show me what you're doing
to the haircut?
with the scissors,
Yes.
Outside of the hair?
Yeah. So when I put the scissor in, I want to stay more parallel to the hair. And then I'm just lightly moving the blade as I follow
so you're not closing
the curvature. No. So the hair sits in the crease, and I'm just doing this. The more I close, the more I cut. So I can feel the hair as I go. And like if this is the head, I follow with the backside of the stationary blade and follow the head shape. Now, once I do that on one side, I'm going to comb that over.
Oh, tricky.
Yeah, tricky. I'm feeling tricky today, Randy. So again, looking at the shortness of the layers. So this, I work backhand. So on the first side, I stood here and work this way into the hair. Now I work palm up. So this is also a good reason why, you know, you want to be able to maneuver the scissors really well. and have a good dexterity so that you can get the scissor in the right position and you're not fighting with the hair. It also comes down to, I combed the hair in the direction that I know I'm going to be working with the scissors into, so that it goes through really easily.
Could you use a razor for this?
Oh yeah,
Laura is asking.
yeah, definitely. If I was going to use the razor, I'd be, I'd work with, slicing through that way. And all the haircuts, I think, your choice of tool is important to the finish that you want to get, and also to, how you like to work.
Oh, this looks so nice.
I mean, I have fun working with the razor. I enjoy it. I love working with clippers. But you just see how light and soft that gets now. I mean, I think you'd agree when I first blow dry it, what was going through my mind was it's overpowering. It's too much. But then I'm saying to myself, I'm like, okay, well, what am I going to do? How am I going to adjust? How am I going to adapt? What technique do I need to make this look like the way I want it to look? So I don't let it freak me out. So that looks really cool.
Mm-hmm.
So I got the basic shape in.
Looks like Wayne's new haircut.
Yeah, this is modeled off of Wayne's new look. So, I got the basic shape in, right, through the outline, and then I rely on slicing, which is a form of texturizing into it. Again, you could do it with the razor. But it all started with how I cut internally, right? So I did the bottom graduation, and then I took these crisscrossing sections through the top, right? And then I cut from the guideline just at the curvature of the crown and cutting into length towards the front. I did that on one side, pulling back. Then I took the sections the opposite, pulled it back, did it the same on the second side, pulling back. Then I allowed the hair to fall. I cut my length in, assess, see what I have, what's going on, and then I sliced through it, to create movement and to get rid of some bulk to it, right? And I think she looks pretty. I'm going to use just a little bit of...
So this has a fin of length through the middle, right?
Yeah, like the basic shape, the length is here. So think about like a teardrop.
Cool.
So like a teardrop of length.
Would this be good on curly hair? This is merino.
Oh yeah, definitely. Everything's good on curly hair.
Fin on it, that's also
Yeah,
good.
this is Davinus. So this is Definition Mist. This is your hair assistant.
Right.
Well, it's Italian, of course it smells good. It's like me, I always smell good. But, just add beautiful shine. Gives a little bit of texture to it. Holds the hair together a little bit, which is nice. But, not heavy. But you can see the shine that it creates. And the ability to kind of give a little bit more of a pieced look. I always like little bits and pieces kind of, coming out. I don't like things to look like a little helmet, I like it to move. I like it to have, some fun, look different every day. Where it's like, wow, your hair looks great. What did you do? You're like, oh, nothing. It's just there.
Where do you get that spray?
Well,
besides from Wayne.
Besides from my friend Wayne. This Davinus, you could find a salon that carries it in your area. There's also, local distributors.
What's the website?
Davinus.com.
Yeah, Davinus.com, and then you'd be able to find, a distributor local to you. Beautiful, just hair care products, styling products, great color. So definitely check it out. But yeah, I think she looks awesome. I want to thank everybody, for watching and having fun. Great questions again. And a great, just wide range of audience, from cosmetology students to people who've been cutting hair for, however many years it is. And that's the thing. We can all learn together. Gino, thanks for making the suggestion, because, you asked 2 weeks ago to do a haircut based off of this technique, which I wanted to do for you. And I had fun doing it, man. Thank you, Pivot Point, professionals that practice. All right. Have a great one, guys.